Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Library Talk and everything else. I'm your host, DJ JC. Getting started a little bit late, but we are here nonetheless, and we thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to be part of your Thursday morning. This is DJ JC again, and I am really excited because I have a special guest in the studio, my best friend, Mr. Rick Nahera. Good morning, Rick.
Hey, good morning, Joel.
You are the guest that has the distinction of being on here for 4 times, and I've had such a wonderful, wonderful time every time you've been here. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting. It's always a pleasure.
We are a research-based show. If you're just listening for the first time, we look at a research question, we discuss that research question, we provide you with data, we provide you with statistics that are accurate, that are appropriate based on research that we've conducted using the UTRGV University Library. Plug. And my friend Rick is here today because we are in the midst of the month of October and it is Fire Prevention Month. So I want to talk about that. And we've discussed this before a year ago, actually, when he came by for the first time. So we're going to look at the research question. We're going to go to a music break, but I honestly thank you if you are a first-time listener for being here. And if you are a supporter from the very beginning, we truly appreciate your support of the show. So we're going to go to a music break, and I am looking forward to this conversation with my friend, Rick Nahera. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much again for listening to Library Talk and everything else. We were laughing, Rick and I, in the studio right now because this song, Staying Alive, is actually used, right, Rick? If you can kind of tell about, a little bit about that.
It's a fun fact here. That song is actually good when doing CPR, like for the individuals that haven't gone through CPR training and stuff. If you do CPR as far as compressions go on the chest, with that song, you should have a good rate for compressions. So they recommend 100 beats per minute. That song is actually a good, if you hum that song or sing that song to yourself in your mind, obviously you don't want to sing.
Exactly. As you're trying to help somebody.
Yeah.
And so the reason we were laughing, was because as Rick's telling me that during the music break, I started thinking about that scene from The Office where they are doing CPR, if you ever see The Office, and they tell him to follow that rhythm of of staying alive. And he starts singing Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive, which we'll listen to during the next music break.
Yeah,
but it was just, we couldn't stop laughing. And that is just, that is why I love having my friend here. And that's why he's been here for 4 times. So I want to introduce again Mr. Rick Nahera to tell you about who he is. He and I have been friends. We were neighbors. We've been through so many adventures together. But honestly, Rick, thank you for being here in the studio this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always great, Joel, to be here. Sometimes the hour goes by so fast.
It really does.
Talking about what we're talking about here. But so my name is Rick Nahera. I'm a lieutenant with the Brownsville Fire Department. And I have been for 19, going on 20 years. So it's always fun to come in and talk. Great time to talk about fire prevention, fire safety.
Yes, as we celebrate, as we mentioned, the month of October is Fire Prevention Month, and we look at a research question in every episode, and we, again, as I mentioned before the break, we analyze it, we break it down, and if we complete the question and if we answer it, that's great. If not, we will continue another show, and the guest will come in, or we just kind of take it as a conversation piece that we can discuss a little bit later.
I think that's why I keep coming back.
I think that's why, because we never really finished the conversation, because we were talking about so many other things. But no, it's great having you here. And like I said, we always have a chance to go to lunch after our session, so it's always good to get together. So the research question for today is, how has the observance of Fire Prevention Month influenced public awareness and policy development in fire safety practices from its inception to present day? And the beginnings of October being Fire Prevention Month are in honor, celebration, or recognition of the Great Chicago Fire that happened in 1871, and approximately 300 people perished, according to the numbers, maybe more, but again, record keeping in 1871, and thousands upon thousands of buildings destroyed, infrastructure was destroyed, And so later on, as we began to recognize and learn more about fire prevention, then President Woodrow Wilson stepped in and started to look at how do we honor that. And so October, being the month in which Chicago suffered from that fire, was the month that was chosen to celebrate it. So you, Rick, as a firefighter, because we're also going to talk about training that you guys go through, but do you learn about history, and does that prepare you in any way to kind of get ready for, you know, to become a firefighter, or to ready you guys in any way? Because we are going to be talking about the training as well, but I was just wondering if history is sometimes introduced to some of the training that you do.
Yeah, so history, yeah, and my brother, he's a history teacher, right? So he's gonna like this plug. He's a teacher at Monsanto. And
Wonderful guy by the name of Andy, and
yeah,
I had a
Andy.
wonderful. I know most of your family, if not everybody, and such wonderful people. So yes,
But yeah, history is important. You learn from it,
yes,
right? It's good not to forget about what has happened in the past. And Joel, that introduction there to Fire Prevention Week and well, Fire Prevention Day, and then it moved to
yes,
week and then month. Yeah, I think you said it all, man. That's it. You know, it's really in recognition of what occurred in the Great Chicago Fire. Right, there was individuals that came together and said, "Hey, look, this is a real problem." And then by the time of, I believe it was 1973, there was a publication out called America Burning, and that really opened the eyes, right, to individuals saying, "There's a real problem out here, and it's called fire, and it's causing a lot of death and destruction throughout America. And how do we solve it? What is the problem, and how do we solve it?" Right. So this a very extensive research paper, so to speak, was published, and people caught on to it. You know, there was the establishment of the National Fire Academy after that, and they were like, okay, well, this is what's going on. Let's solve the issues, and from there it came about laws and ordinances were in effect as far as fire alarms, smoke detectors, and having them as a law in your home, and that with that brings another issue with, okay, we'll put that stuff in our home, right, because it's needed.
yes,
But then it's like, well, how do you get people to enforce those smoke detectors as working,
yes,
you know? And then that's where we come in as a fire department. And they found it very important for us to go out and talk to schools and talk to businesses and companies within our districts and tell them, hey, look, this is very important. We need to get the word out. And this being Fire Prevention Month for us, I've already had a couple of fire prevention presentations at elementary schools because that's a popular thing during
it is.
October. We don't really hit middle schools or high
No,
schools, right?
I don't think you would want to.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
So
elementary, you could still capture them because they see
yeah,
that fire truck come in and they just get
they love
so
it.
excited.
They love it,
They
man.
do. They
They
really
do.
do.
And this is where we get to talk to them about stop, drop, and roll,
Yes.
911, and then it starts being ingrained in their minds,
Yes.
right? But I get a chance to talk to these kids, and I'm telling them, hey, look, I got two assignments for you. You guys think homework, right, is classwork, but I got two assignments for you, and they're all looking at me like, well, okay, what are they? And number one is their smoke detectors. I have
Yes.
them go home and ask their parents or their grandparents, whoever they live with, when was the last time we checked these batteries on the smoke
Yes.
detector? And, there's a lot of like, okay, we'll do it on daylight saving time and do it, on this time. And I just tell them, tell your parents to change those batteries every 6 months.
Yes.
Change them every 6 months, and you put a fresh set of batteries in, and you're done, right? So that's the first assignment. Go home, tell your parents
Yes.
when was the last time we checked the smoke alarm, and the second assignment is to have an exit strategy in case there is a fire.
Yes.
Some people live in two-story homes. Some people live in homes that have certain obstacles in their way, or they can't get out through. They can only get out through one access, or what if that access is blocked and that kind of thing. And where are we going to meet? Are we going to meet at a mailbox? Are we going to meet at a tree, at a neighbor's house, at the car? Where are we going to meet? And a lot of individuals don't know this because they've never been taught that. They've
Yes.
never been, okay, crawl low and smoke. It's better to get out of the house while you're crawling low. You can see better.
Yes.
Smoke rises, that kind of thing. So we do a lot of community engagement, and just this last week with the Brownsville Fire Department, we had this event called Fire Fest, and it was really geared towards kids. And we had an obstacle course. I was manning that obstacle course, and we had them go through a fire training, a junior firefighter
okay.
obstacle course, and they loved it, man. We had a line of like 50 kids, and that line never went down for like 3 hours.
Wow.
It was great. It was great. I had a blast, but we were teaching them to crawl low. We were teaching them, what would you do if there was a fire in your house? And a lot of them don't know. A lot of them don't know to feel the door with the back of their hand and see if there's fire on the other side. So we as a fire department, as firefighters, it's our obligation to teach the kids, right, on fire safety. And we've come a long way.
Yes.
We have come a long way with smoke detectors and exit strategies and all that. More stringent laws and ordinances for our buildings and fire codes and fire ratings on doors and all that. We've come a long way, but there still is deaths that occur in residences and in buildings and things like that. So our job is not only to put the fires out, but it's also to educate.
Yes.
And that's why we have a fire prevention division in every fire service, because you want to enforce, you want to educate first, and then you want to enforce the laws, right? But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what Fire Prevention Month is or should be.
And Rick, so when you have gone to a house fire, do you see that a lot of people, in a sense, kind of just do follow some of these things? I mean, do you see that these people at some point maybe took a lesson or just kind of felt like, hey, you know what, this is what we had already planned on doing, or this is how we needed to do things? Or do you find that a lot of people in situations that are caught off guard, unfortunately, don't have a plan? What do you see more of?
Yeah, no, we see more of individuals that feel this will never happen to me.
Yes. Okay.
It's always well, we didn't think this would ever happen, but accidents happen. Accidents happen, and that's what we're there for, right? We show up when you're having your worst day, and we try to make it a little bit better. But most of the cases that we go to when we show up is that attitude of, well, we thought it was never going to happen to us, so
Yes.
you kind of are lax about it. You kind of are, well, I didn't think it would ever happen, so I didn't think it was that important. But I mean, fire is very destructive, and it can have some serious financial consequences, if you don't have insurance. And that's why insurance is so important for homeowners. You want to make sure that you have your insurance in place, because if you do have that unfortunate circumstance that happens to you, you want to make sure that you can rebuild
Yes.
your life back, or as close back as together as it was, right?
I think you mentioned something last time you were on the show, that as situations like that arise, a lot of people want to save those items that they have been, saving for years. And I think human life is more important than that collection of LPs that you may, or that collection of CDs that you
Collection of comic books.
Exactly, and board games in my
Board
case.
games, yeah.
And so I think you said wonderfully last time, was it just get out? Those
Right.
things can be, maybe they can't be because it's an heirloom or whatever, but for the most part, I think human life is more important.
Yeah, one of the mottos, so to speak, that we have in October is get out and stay out, right? And that's one of the things that we talk to with elementary kids, because they want their stuffed animal that they
Yes.
sleep with at night. They want their, PlayStation. They want, their Switch or whatever it is, right? Whatever means a lot to them at the time. So oh my God, what am I going to do with that? They don't have that sense of, well, I can get you another one. I don't worry about that. Just get out and stay out. Get out and call 911. Make sure everybody's out of the house. And that's one of the first things when we arrive on scene of a house fire. As an officer, that's one of the first things that you ask people outside that are watching that house, because you don't know who's the occupant, you don't know who's the resident, you don't know who's a neighbor, you don't know who's just a bystander that just
Yes.
passed by and is filming. But
And you
uh,
said filming. That's what we tend to do.
yeah,
We
no, we
see
see that a
something out of the
lot.
ordinary, and we are just standing around with our phones recording and
And
posting and
and you know what? That's fine. Just don't get in the way, right? Like
exactly.
don't get in the way. But
But wait, I need to put this
yeah,
TikTok.
yeah, right. No,
The
but
firefighters arriving.
one of the first things that we ask is everybody out of the house?
Mhm.
And if we get a confirmation, yes, everybody's out of the house, I'm the resident, everybody's out, that's great. During the day, we kind of know that most of the people are going to be out of the house area, either at work or at school, that kind of thing. It's at night where we have the issue of we don't know if there's an elderly individual in there that might need assistance getting out. We don't know if the child was left in the crib, or whatever the case might be. But at night is where we have more of a concern that somebody was left in the house or
Yes.
somebody needed help getting out. But one of the first questions we ask is everybody out? Is everybody okay?
And Rick, what is the leading cause of house fires? Let's say that you at least
By
accidental.
far, yeah, accidental. They leave something on the stove and forget. They go to
Candles?
sleep. Candles they leave lit. Yeah, that's the leading cause is accidental. Then you go on to obviously you get those individuals that it's called arson, right?
Yes.
Where they want to burn for financial gain or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, most of the time they go to sleep smoking. They
A cigarette just falls.
cigarette falls, and you'd be surprised how quickly a curtain will ignite. And once that curtain ignites, and then now that we're going into the holidays,
Exactly.
um,
Decorations.
decorations, and people don't follow the guidelines for hooking up decorations and Christmas lights, and it's very important to keep that fresh Christmas tree with water, right? You don't want it to die real quick, because once you start getting the leaves turning brown, and that's a potential fire hazard in itself.
It's such a wonderful conversation. And you mentioned something about, policies changing, legislation that included smoke alarms and different codes, right? Different codes that were looked at. I know going back to history, there's that what is it, that triangle shirt fire where the exits were blocked.
Oh yeah. I thought you were talking about the fire triangle.
No,
but
no, 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 sorry.
No,
No,
there was
that
one?
shirt waist
Hmm.
fire where the owners locked the doors, and when the fire happened, these people couldn't escape.
Yeah, and there's also that Rhode Island
Oh
fire,
yes, the at the nightclub.
the nightclub,
At the
and they had
nightclub.
pyrotechnics there, and there was only one exit, and
And that video is so, if you've seen it, it is so amazing, but at the same time so real as to how fast
oh
fire can engulf a place. And the tragic part of that whole video is that there are people trapped inside of that nightclub and that are ultimately perishing. And I think if I remember, that group Great White was playing, and they had pyrotechnics, and they didn't have enough I think alarms, or maybe they did have
exits
alarms, they didn't have exits.
exits.
And I don't think their system for the
Oh, the sprinkler system.
was working, and so it just kind of was a bad combination all around. And
Yeah,
the
and
amount of
then
people
the
that were
amount of
also in
people,
there.
yeah, that goes back to what we were talking about is enforcement and education. You always want to let the business owners know, hey, look, this is well overpopulated in this bar or nightclub or whatever it is, and you got to make sure that these individuals have a way to get out. I think the report came back as those doors were locked, and they were locked from the outside. They couldn't, get in or whatever the case was. But after the fire was out, there was literal bodies
Yes,
at the
stacked
doorway,
up,
stacked up
stacked up on
on
the
the
door.
doorway.
Yes.
And going back to history, this helps you get educated and say, okay, as a firefighter, as a business owner, as just somebody that's going to go enjoy a night out.
Hmm.
And my wife will can attest to this. Whenever we go out to eat, whenever we go somewhere, I have to face the exit.
I was about to say that because I said earlier, and if you all caught it, that one of the wonderful things about Rick being on the show is that we always get to go to lunch afterwards. So we'll go to lunch, and he always wants to sit facing the door. even when when it's just he and I, he has to sit towards the door.
I don't know what it is, man, but I feel very uncomfortable not looking at the exits, not looking at the door. I want to know who's coming in, who's leaving. And then I wanted to know. I want to know in case something happens, where are
Where to
my
go.
exits? If there's only one exit, I'm pretty uncomfortable about it. But yeah, that's one of the things history will teach you. Okay, this is what happened. How can we learn from it, and how can we get better? And now you get more stringent, laws and ordinances with, businesses and
And the
things like
stuff
that.
that you see in the movies is just not always accurate. The fact that you could break a window and get out is not always, readily available to you, or the fact that the sprinkler systems are going to work
It's harder to break a window
automatically.
than you think.
Exactly.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know, going back to that another clip from The Office where they have an emergency training, that it's not as simple as it looks in the movies,
Yeah.
and the
And
fact that sprinklers are the water's going to come out dirty, right? It's not always
yeah,
just
yeah,
as they depicted in the movies. So be ready.
that water's been standing there for who knows how long, right? But yeah, you practice these drills, and they're meant to, like, okay, if this happens, this is what we're gonna do, and drills are very good. Drills are perfect. That's what you want to practice, right? But in the heat of the moment, things go wrong,
Yes.
right? And you got to prepare for things to go wrong. Also, you got to have your plan A and plan B, right? What if you do have that fire on the other side of the door, and the bedroom is on the second story, right? How does your little girl, or how does your little boy, or how do they get out, right? Well, you got to plan for that. Do you have a rope ladder that you can throw out the window? Do you have a first story landing that maybe they can get out onto that
Yes.
landing, and get out? So you got to plan for those kind of things, because things will go wrong and they won't go according to plan. You're gonna have something happen, but you got to learn from it. You got to plan for it and expect for it to happen.
One thing that I remember seeing a lot were burglar bars. You don't see burglar bars too
I don't see
often,
too many, and
right?
we would practice a lot with back in the day. Not because for those of you that don't know, I'm a third generation firefighter.
Yes.
So my grandfather retired as an assistant chief with the fire department. My father retired. He was a fire chief with
Yes.
the Brownsville Fire Department. Myself, and now my son is a
I know that
fourth
is
generation
that is
firefighter.
incredible.
And to go one step further, my nephew just took the firefighter exam here in Brownsville. He's Desi Nahida the third,
That's incredible.
and he got pretty high on the list. So he's got
A
a
future.
really, really good chance
And
of
that's
getting in.
great.
So it's moving. The legacy is moving on. But
And I remember, not remember, but I've seen this, that I go to your house and you have a bookshelf littered with books about fire prevention
Yeah, those-
and fire safety.
yeah, those books, a lot of people don't know. It's not merit based, promotions.
It's for you.
Yeah, this stuff is really good information, but it's also required to be promoted. There's like 5 or 6 books that we have to study and take promotional exams in the Brownsville Fire Department. That's the way it works. We got to go through these promotions, but you want to make sure that as a administration, you want to make sure that you're promoting the most competent officer that
Exactly.
you can, right? Or the most competent individual that you can promote. So, but going back to those burglar bars, I remember my dad would always tell me, look, this is where you're going to hit if you need to get that burglar bar the building, you're going to hit it right here. You know, he would show me different tactics and things like that for my knowledge later on in the service. But you don't see too many of those. And
Exactly.
there's one story if we still have time for
We
it
do.
before we go to break.
We do.
Back in the day, there was one story of a individual. My dad told me a story several years ago. One individual, the house was on fire, it was burning, and when you have a fire and you're a firefighter, you want to do anything you can to help those individuals. And there's a certain amount of adrenaline running, in your body when you see that house going. And now, especially when you see somebody trapped, you
Yes.
know. So one firefighter went up to this burglar bars, and they were trying to hit the burglar bars to get the individual out. And this individual, I don't know if you can imagine this, but front door, and then you have that front door kind of like
Yes.
enclosed in
My
burglar
my
bars.
parents have that.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So that individual was caught in that little area
Yes.
and didn't have the key with her, or it was locked. And this firefighter went up to those burglar bars and actually bent the burglar bars for her to
Oh
get
my
out and
gosh.
saved her
Again,
life.
because
Yeah.
of the adrenaline. And you hear stories like that
You
of
hear,
people
yeah,
tossing over cars because their son or daughter is trapped or a family
exactly.
member.
So yeah, you don't see too many burglar bars
I
anymore.
know. Maybe because
Now,
everything is now
but you,
camera based and you
yeah,
have
but
so many cameras
we
out.
do have issues with the exterior shutters.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true. My parents also have those.
yeah, you have the, now we have tools to get in if that was the case, but yeah, those are the different as time goes on, you get different evolutions of security, right? And we got to move with those. We're not only with security, but Tesla vehicles.
Yes.
We go through a lot of training for EV
Those
fires
electric,
and things
yes.
like that. We have new equipment, but the fire service is so fluid, right? There's always something coming out. There's always something. Okay, how do you prepare for this, and how do you prepare for that? And
And
that's why
that goes back
training.
and that goes back to the research question about the evolution of fire safety. It's such a wonderful conversation. I'm just listening in awe
I
to
could
what my
I could
friend
talk
what my
for
friend
hours.
continues to talk about. But I want to thank you, the listener, for being here and for allowing us again to be part of your Thursday morning. We're going to go to a music break, and the conversation is going to continue. And we are going to go a little over our time at 11 because there were some technical issues. And I do want to thank Ariana and the rest of the student media for helping us every week in setting this up. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Such a wonderful conversation and such an opportunity for me to spend some time with my friend Rick Nakara here from the fire department here in Brownsville. We were going into the break and we talked about the evolution of fire safety, and we were talking about burglar bars and how you don't see as many burglar bars anymore. But as the trends, continue, and as he mentioned, EV vehicles now and getting ready for those, because that's a whole other way of fighting that type of
Right,
fire, right?
right. Yeah. So one of the things that we purchased to prepare for that is they're called EV blankets, and these things are exactly what it is. It's a it's a blanket that we put over that electric vehicle and smother the fire, right? So, but one of the things that we have to worry about now is we're smothering the fire, but what happens when we take that blanket off? You're going to have those flames come back up again, right? So the idea is to smother the fire, leave that blanket on there, have the tow truck take it to a junkyard, and then have the junkyard bury it or dip it in a tank or
Really?
yeah. It's a long process, and that will burn for a few days. Yeah, that is something that we're preparing for, and we're, even though we're seeing quite a bit of EV vehicles out there, they're I mean, we see a lot out there, but we don't see enough to where it's causing a major concern.
Yes.
For us.
Okay.
We just
Okay.
we're trying to stay ahead of the curve, and saying, okay, if this happens, we have one of those blankets in every command unit. They're too big and heavy to put them on the fire truck, so it's on every command unit has one, and we're trying to get that on the scene as quickly as possible.
The public awareness that you mentioned earlier, bringing the fire truck to the elementaries, introducing fire safety at such a young age. We hope that they continue that behavior as they grow older. You mentioned also we're not going to take that to a middle school or a high school, but it is important to get them young, and I think that public awareness is important because, as you mentioned, you introduce smoke alarms where maybe a smoke alarm wasn't readily available, or these campaigns that you have during Fire Prevention Week, and draws attention to the risks that are associated with fire. And we've talked about some of those things: the nightclub, the restaurants, the stores and businesses that have now had to change because of federal law that has dictated, hey, you know what? You need to have exits. You need to have ramps. You need to have all these different things. And a quote here that I wanted to cite is, the rate of home fire deaths has dropped significantly compared to mid 20th century, in large part thanks to better detection, building codes, fire suppression, and education. And that is everything that you've been talking about: education, the training, the teachings, the introduction to fire safety to the young masses. And there have been so many wonderful things, and it has cut the risk of death. And so you guys are doing a wonderful job on top of everything that you do on a daily basis. The fact that you are out there educating our community, and I don't want to sound like this is Bronzeville centric, because this is happening in fire departments across the valley, across the United States.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, you got volunteer fire
That's true. Los
departments.
Fresnos, right?
Yeah, Los Fresnos, Edinburgh. I think it's half and half now, but you got all these volunteer services that make up a large portion of the fire service in Texas. Are volunteer organizations that take time out to respond to these emergencies. But you're right, Joel, and I know I've said it quite a few times already, but history, man, history will teach you things, and going back to that mid 20th century, quote that you said is important, because we didn't have the technology
No.
that we have now. And the reason we have the technology that we have now is because we learned from it.
Yes.
We learned from that. Well, hey, people are dying. How are we gonna take care of this? How are we gonna address this issue? Well, we're gonna have more stringent, ordinances, more laws. We're gonna have, better fire trucks. We're gonna have better equipped firefighter personnel. We're gonna have better gear. So we can have the tools, right, to succeed.
And it's very unfortunate that we have to go through something in order to learn from it, but that's just
that's
like
a
you said,
reality.
the history of it. Yes,
Yeah,
and the reality of things.
that's a reality. Once we start forgetting history, that's it. We're doomed.
To learn.
So,
To repeat that behavior.
we're doomed. Yeah.
And you said something really interesting earlier, Rick, about complacency and the fact that it's never going to happen to me. I'm okay.
and
I don't smoke.
and I
I don't set up any candles.
and I hate to say it, but complacency lives everywhere. It lives within us. It lives in our. I hate to say it, but it lives within the department. It lives within law enforcement, everywhere. Right. Any career that you go into, there's going to be complacency there, and that's one things that we try to get rid of is the complacency. We want to make sure that our personnel, at least with my shift and my crew, that hey, we got to prepare or prepare for the unexpected, right? What if obviously in a perfect world you train for it, and hey, look, we're gonna tie this knot, we're gonna anchor off of here, and we're gonna rappel down here. Okay, it all seems right, great,
Cut and dry.
yeah, but it doesn't always go that way, and especially in an emergency. And we like to think of ourselves as firefighters. We'd like to think of ourselves as the technical guy, right? They're calling us for a reason. Their day is going horrible, and they want us to figure out or problem solve, right?
Yes.
What do we do, right? Here, I brought my kid in, and he's got a ring on his finger that's too tight. Take it off, How do we do that? and there's different things that we got to problem solve about. But when we train, hey, look, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna train. This is how we're gonna do it because you you play like you practice.
Yes.
You know that's very important. I feel right.
My daughter is an architectural student, studying architecture, excuse me,
Very
in
smart.
San Antonio.
Very smart. You guys did a great job.
Thank you so much. She's studying architecture, almost getting ready to graduate. And one of the things that she's learning as you have the new development of homes, which are smart homes
Yeah.
and everything becoming technology driven, she's learning how to incorporate technology, but also there's that safety because as more and more technology gets placed into these households, you have to know how to build a structure that allows for, like you say, ventilation and for proper management of, fire and so forth. And so we talked about this at the beginning about the evolution of your training. So and I've gone to your house and you have these books laid out, and sometimes I'm very inquisitive slash metiche, and I'll kind of browse because I love reading and how fire behaves.
Yeah, reading there.
How the suppression techniques and different things like that.
So that's one of the things that they drill on you when you get into the fire academy is history, number one, and number two is how fire behaves.
Yes.
And what is needed in a room or a building to have fire. And it used to be the fire triangle, right? You needed three things.
That's what you thought I was mentioning
That's
earlier.
why-
I was like,
that's
wow,
why-
this guy really knows his fire suppression.
yeah. Heat, fuel, and fire, right?
Uh-huh.
You need those three things, right? But heat, fuel, and So now it evolved to the you need four things. You need a chemical reaction, and now I'm sure it's going to evolve from there, right? But these things we get like drilled on when we go into the academy and we begin our training. Before it was you're going to get we say in the fire service, you're going to put the wet stuff on the red stuff.
Mhm.
And that's how it was done, right? You see a fire, you're going to put smoke, you're going to put water on it and call it a day.
That's right.
Now it's like, okay, well, how is a fire going to move through a building?
Yes.
It's going to follow the path of least resistance, and it's going to follow the fuel and the oxygen, and it's going to follow the dry wood and all that stuff. And once you start learning about it, and then you go a step further and you're like, okay, now we got to read smoke. And what is the smoke doing? And the smoke's telling us a story too on backdraft and on flashovers and things like that. Backdraft was a big hit movie back in the 90s.
I remember that. Joaquin Phoenix and John Travolta, was it?
No.
Oh, no, that was, I'm way off on that. That's the movie that I'm working on.
That was a Baldwin.
That's the script I'm working on, the screenplay.
Yeah, that was Baldwin. I don't know. I think it was Alec Baldwin.
Uh-huh.
One of the Baldwins.
Yes.
And then it was, what's his name?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Sutherland.
Oh, yeah, Donald. Donald.
Donald.
Kiefer
No,
Sutherland.
it was Donald.
Sutherland,
He
okay.
would. Yeah. Anyway.
That's one thing we don't know is movie history. Fire prevention and research we do.
But that reading smoke is very important to a firefighter because you want to make sure that you're not sending your crew in to a dangerous environment.
Yes,
Obviously,
exactly.
the fire is a dangerous environment already, but there's several videos out there. You just YouTube backdraft videos or flashover videos. You're sending your crew into a building that is already getting ready to flash over. Those temperatures exceed over 2,500 degrees.
That's insane.
And our gear is not designed to sustain that or withstand that.
And that's one of the things. As that happens, your equipment also, I'm sure, has evolved and is evolving and continues to evolve.
Oh.
We have SpaceX. I'm sure that's another way of fighting
Industrial
those particular
firefighting.
fighters.
Yeah, industrial firefighting. You went from structural firefighting, which is what everybody teaches in the fire academy, structural firefighting. Then it moved on to wildland firefighting, and then it's moving to marine firefighting and industrial firefighting, and all these are different disciplines that you can have within the fire service. But depending on what career you want to take or what steps you want to take, you go and you get those different certifications, and it teaches you a lot. It teaches you. Some people love teaching this stuff.
Yes.
Other people like,
Absorb it like you.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about absorbing, but other people just like doing the skill.
Yes, that's
You
true,
know,
too.
like I want to be out there and I want to do this.
Get in there,
You know?
yeah.
And there's something for everybody in the fire service. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, such a wonderful conversation and such an opportunity to have my friend in the studio today. We're going to go to one music break and then we'll close everything off. He was right. The time just flies by, and are going to go a little bit over time today because we started late. We wish we had the whole afternoon, but we have to close it off in a bit. Thank you so much again. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Good morning, everybody. We are getting ready to close out our show, and I do want to thank all of you that have been longtime supporters of the show. And if you're listening for the first time, thank you so very much. Hopefully, you like the content. Hopefully, you continue to listen every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else. I'm your host, DJ JC. I want to mention something real quick, Rick, because you mentioned your family, and now you have a fourth generation in your family and a nephew, you said, right?
Right.
I have had, and it has been my privilege to know and meet all of your family-in-law, and thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your family and your events and so forth. They're such a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful family.
Yeah, they're actually listening.
Oh, that's
right now.
that's great.
Yeah,
So
they're
thank you
actually
so much.
listening right now, which
So
is great.
continue to listen, family, every Thursday at 10 a.m. No, we truly thank you so much for you being here, Rick, and for everybody that's listening. I know my parents are listening as well.
We want to get your radio show the highest. listened to.
Thank you so much. I really would like that. We're getting ready to close out, but I do want to ask you something, Rick, as we've talked about. And again, sometimes we cover everything on the research question, and sometimes we don't. But that's just another reason, an excuse to have you come back to the show. But what I do want to mention is the wonderful job that not only you and the Brownsville Fire Department are doing, but as throughout the United States. And if somebody is interested in joining the fire department, at least here in Brownsville, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so with Brownsville specifically, we are a civil service department or Chapter 143 department of the local government code. I know that sounds kind of
Very technical.
very technical, but basically what that's saying is that you have to test to get into the fire department. It's not a volunteer department where you fill out an application, and if we like what we see and hear, well, you're hired, and
Yes.
we'll send you to a fire academy. This one's more technical. You have to take a civil service exam, and that was just administered a couple of weeks ago. And we give one every year or as needed. But it's every year. You have to score high on that test. It's a competency-based test. It has a little bit of math and reading and language and all that good stuff. And if you get a high grade in that exam, then we bring you in for a physical agility exam. We make sure you're not scared of heights. You climb a 100-foot ladder and you do different technical skills. You pass that, you go into an interview. And you pass that, you go into a one-on-one interview with the fire chief. He'll offer you a job and send you for a medical evaluation. Everything works out. You're hired with the Brownsville Fire Department. Then we send you to training. You start getting paid right away. Another thing that the Brownsville Fire Department is unique on is you have to be a paramedic as well.
Yes.
To be employed with the fire department. That's one thing my son is going through right now, paramedic school. And you got to be a paramedic as well. So from day one, you start getting paid. And that's what's great about the fire department. We're not asking you for these certifications prior. If we like everything, we will send you to school, and we're paying you while you go to school, which is great. A lot of people don't realize that you're getting paid a good amount of money to go and study. So you go, you do your fire training. You get your EMT basic, you get your EMT paramedic, and after about a year and a half or so, you're a full-fledged firefighter paramedic with the Brownsville Fire Department. And then from there on, there's different career opportunities from there, and like I said,
And advancements.
Advancements.
Thank you so much, Rick, honestly. And men and women that are listening, please, if you are interested in fire service and giving back to your community, such a wonderful opportunity. So I do want to thank Rick again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, the listener. It is always such a wonderful opportunity to have you in the studio and just continue to talk about fire safety. You're so knowledgeable, and I learned something as I walk out of here as well. So I want to just wish you all a wonderful week. I do have an announcement real quick about an event that's going to be happening tonight, this evening. The UTRGV Band is going to be performing a UTRGV Wind Orchestra and Symphonic Winds here in Brownsville at the UTRGV Arts. And it is tonight at 7 o'clock from 7 to 9 at the TSC Performing Arts Center here on 90 Taylor Avenue in Brownsville. It is $10, and I've heard that the band does such a wonderful job. And so if you're interested in that, look at the UTRGV's website for more information. And honestly, thank you so much for being here. And we want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week, and tune in and see our conversation will be now. Oh, I'm just so excited about it. Tune in next week to see what our conversation will be like. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate you being
Thank you
here.
for having me. I appreciate it.
And again, you're welcome
JC.
anytime, sir.
All right.
Come back.
Thank you.
All right. So have a wonderful week. And this is a song that Rick wanted to hear, "Man in the Suitcase" by The Police.
Yeah, this
And
is an
so
oldie.
this is an oldie. I've never heard it, so it's the first time I'm listening to it as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful week. You've been listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station.